So I'm Marilyn Swick. I'm one of the very first sleep technologists in the US. I trained at Ohio State University in the late 70s. So that really dates me. And my son is actually also, I was pregnant with him, smelling the collodion fumes, putting electrodes on people's heads. And he is now the chair of the sleep department at Mayo Clinic here in Scottsdale. He's triple boarded in internal medicine, sleep medicine, and obesity. Chad Roof, if you've never met him. And then, we Todd and I and Chad, our passion is sleep disorder medicine and our patients, and we've always had a place in our heart for our narcolepsy patients as well. And I will let Todd introduce himself and take it away.
Hello, everybody. It's good to see people who I have known and worked with and meet new people. And I want to welcome everybody to this Zoom meeting. My goal here is to really listen. So my 4 years at Takeda was very informative for me. And we spent a lot of time looking at the impact of narcolepsy on patients. And it's not a funny disease. Anybody who thinks it's a funny disease needs to be educated because, it diminishes the patients who have it, and it diminishes the quest for treatment. And it allows doctors who don't know anything about narcolepsy to dismiss it. And what it does is it makes it more difficult for all the patients who do have disorders of central hypersomnia to find a doctor who is willing to treat it vigorously because it's just a funny disease. And that's ridiculous. So we have to find a way to get to not only NBC, but the entire TV and entertainment community that um, they have to treat narcolepsy like they treat cancer, like they treat heart disease with seriousness. And it's not something to be made fun of.
Yeah.
So I'd like to hear your comments and your suggestions. And with that, I will happily.
Yeah, let me pop back in. Todd Todd is a neurologist and a sleep medicine specialist. He's been board certified for many years, also one of the first sleep specialists, and that's how we met. So I just wanted to give him a shout out for that as well. And we had 3 very busy offices, our practices in Houston, Texas, and we sold them to our nurse practitioner actually, and then we went to the dark side of big pharma. And we were dedicated to work on the Takeda drugs. He was in clinical sciences, I was in clinical operations. So I hope that answers the questions of why we're here and why we're so passionate to continue to advocate and educate all in narcolepsy and cataplexy. Now I'll call on you so you can introduce yourselves. Alejandro, so introduce yourself, say where you're based or living, if you have narcolepsy, narcolepsy cataplexy, and also how many years it took you to get a correct diagnosis. That's always so you can just say, "It took me 5 years, it took me 2 years," whatever however you wanna say that. And then if you'd like to go ahead and give your comments about the program, just 1 or 2 sentences, if you've seen it or not seen it, and we'll also just come back to that after we introduce ourselves. So, Alejandro, you're up.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Alejandro Bruno Solis. I'm the program manager for PWN. We're a nonprofit that helps individuals with narcolepsy and idiopathic hypersomnia. I am located in Commerce City, Colorado, which is just right outside of Denver. So that's where I reside. It took me 32 years to get diagnosed. So the symptoms started at 5 years old, sleep paralysis. So, you can imagine exactly what that was like. And then, yeah, as far as, yeah, the program and yeah, just to, piggyback on Dr. Schlick there is, I agree. It's not funny. And I can attest to that 32 years of not being diagnosed and always trying to avoid the stigma of falling asleep all the time. It was hard. I was battling that. And I think everybody else here can say that as well. But I also look to our leaders, and I mean leaders by in government and then also, in the workforce. They too do not take this serious. And so I think that's also something that we need to get people to realize that, sleep is 30% of our life. And we need to start taking it serious. You don't get ahead by not sleeping. And so that's what I'll say, but yeah, and I just thanks again for inviting us to this. This is great.
Absolutely, thank you. And Heather?
Hi, my name's Heather Corby, and I am in Northampton in the UK. I have had narcolepsy to diagnosis. I think it's 25 years. So it's from age 8 to 33. My maths is terrible.
Wow.
Um, what other
Have you seen the
comments?
show
I've seen a
or the
small
video
clip. Yeah,
clip that Julie posted?
yeah, that's the bit that
Yeah.
I've seen with the falling straight backwards,
Yeah.
which is not what we do. So it's not actually representative of what we actually have and what we do. But I also think that because it's a bit of a spectrum disorder, that if you were going to go over and like interview one person, we need like 3 or 4 people interviewed because we're all slightly different.
Mhm. Absolutely, thank you. And Rachel?
Oh, hi. I'm Rachel Nesmith. I live in Dallas, Texas. And well, when the symptoms first started, and all the auxiliary symptoms are the ones that alerted me to something was wrong. So it's all the things that they don't show on TV that were happening to me. And at first, I didn't connect it to narcolepsy. I'm like, well, it's sleep paralysis with hypnagogic hallucinations. And then all of a sudden, couldn't stand. Well, I started having cataplexy around October, and it was. I was like, I didn't know what it was, but eventually I read something that talked about cataplexy, and I was like, "That's it." But it wasn't until my grandma had done some research, and she said, "Well, I think actually it's narcolepsy because you have all these symptoms, and I've caught you like napping at weird times." And I looked it up on Wikipedia. And I'm like, "That's it." It wasn't like I think I have it. It was like I know I have it. So, I struggled for a little bit because, my mom's health insurance at the time when I was a sophomore in college, they did not, junior, they did not they completely excluded all sleeping disorders. So that meant I had to wait until February to begin on my dad's, and on February 2nd, less than like, I was alerted, and I had it took me about 6 to 7 months to get diagnosed from the explosive onset to getting diagnosis, but on a large part, that was because I went in laser focused with all my notes, and I knew that I had narcolepsy, and and I think that ties into why these examples in the media are completely doing us a disservice, because I did not connect EDS or NAPS. Because to me, I was a good college student, and I had bad sleep habits because I would study, 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 but I didn't connect the sleepiness on part because Deuce Bigelow, because that I never did that. I never fell in my soup. Um, uh, I mean, I do sometimes now, but not very often, and I think because of they show people just falling, they make it look like the sleep attack and cataplexy are one, but they could do so much of a better job of going and even make it funny. Like, why don't they have somebody, um, um, nobody's checking on Madonna to make sure she's okay or even breathing.
Mhm.
They just let her lay there on the mat after she collapses, and what is not we know that's the one thing that I can control when I have cataplexy is the direction and method at which I fall, and I will do anything but wanna fall on my back.
Yeah,
I will
yeah.
fall, and you wanna protect your head if possible, but I almost always I don't usually hit my back like that, and it's always like you fold like a puppet, it's not like a pancake, and, that yeah, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And Tara?
Yeah, hi, I'm Tara O'Connor. I am in South Portland, Maine. I'm originally from Iowa. I moved here 2 years ago. I have narcolepsy type 1, and it took me 20 years to get diagnosed. I had symptoms since I was 2 and wasn't diagnosed until I was 22, which was 6.5 years ago. And I was misdiagnosed with a lot of things, as a kid, ADHD, ODD, anxiety, depression, all the fun things. And I am a pediatric sleep coach. I recently started my own business trying to get clients at this moment, just because I am very passionate about it, um, and want to help families because I know what it's like to be sleep deprived as a kid and how much it affects the entire family. I feel like I have a different perspective on things just because of my um, journey. But, I am really disappointed in this show. I watched it last night, the first 2 episodes, just because I wanted to see before this meeting, and I feel like it's very dramatic, and makes it very it just makes it a joke, the show does, and it's just not okay, and I feel like even, like, other people on, like, the cheer squad or whatever it is, they're making fun of her, and, that's also not okay, and, Alejandro and, Rachel know that I mentioned also recently, the last couple weeks, saw them mention narcolepsy on 2 other TV shows and making fun of it. And
Yeah,
so
which ones?
Chicago Med,
Yes, I saw
and
that.
then,
Right.
this game show called 99 to Beat. Um,
What's it
it
called?
99 to Beat. It's a game show,
Oh,
and
okay.
the I think one of the hosts, he's actually, I think, a former doctor or a doctor, and he was the one who made the comment. And then the doctors made fun of the patient, or not made fun of, but, like, on Chicago Med, the patient was mentioning she had narcolepsy, and then she fell asleep, and the doctors were like, "I wish I could fall asleep like that."
Mhm.
And I was like, "That's just awful." And so I feel like it's really important to raise awareness because it just makes it even harder for us to get like, people who are not currently diagnosed to get diagnosed because it just makes it seem like a joke and very dramatic, and, like, I myself first was diagnosed with type 2 because I didn't have all my doctor asked me was, "Do your knees buckle when you laugh really hard?" And I'm like, "No." And so they're like, "Okay, you have type 2." But then after meeting other people with narcolepsy and, reading Julie's book, I was like, I have cataplexy, and so my diagnosis changed, but it's like, and so I really try to raise awareness on that because it isn't just that dramatic falling down type of thing, and so, yeah, I could talk all day about it, but yeah.
Okay, thank you, and Sakara?
Um, Hi everyone, I'm Sakara. I have narcolepsy type 1. I was diagnosed in 2015. I live in Philadelphia in the States. I have not seen the show Stumble. I saw the trailer and it was very frustrating and very aggravating to watch that because I know that that's not how cataplexy is portrayed. And, for us to be in 2025 and for the media to still have, shows like this that depict narcolepsy in such a, joking manner, it's very, very disappointing. And, I was reading some of the comments on Instagram when the trailer came out, and it was on YouTube. And people were saying, "Oh, I can't wait to watch it. Oh, it's gonna be so funny." You know, and there was a few people that commented that said, people that were in the sleep community that said that this wasn't an accurate description of cataplexy, and that people shouldn't support a network that's portraying such a serious condition as a joke.
Right.
So um, I will not be watching the show because I think it's going to upset me, and I think it's going to make my cataplexy worse. And it's probably just going to piss me off. So I will not be putting myself through that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And Solomon?
Hi. Thanks for having me or doing this too. My name is Solomon Briggs. I'm an independent advocate. I go by Narcolepsy, but I live in Bloomington, Indiana. I was 31 when I actually received the diagnosis and began at 28. I had a very severe cataplexy through my 20s, which impacted my life beyond anything else I've had, and I've had a roller coaster the entire time. I didn't even realize that I had sleepiness because it was just a fatigue and heaviness all those years. Um, I've seen the trailer. I felt pretty insulted, but it's it's frequent in that regard. They portrayed it really bad, like Rachel said. It could have been done like they got elements in there, She's like the second clip in the trailer at least, she's all hyped up and talking, but then she just collapsed, and the way everybody reacts, it's always a punchline. So it's reducing the human to like a punchline, and that is an external ordeal for every person that's been diagnosed with this disease. It really changes how people treat you as soon as the term is ever associated to your name or you mention it. So there's a lot that needs to happen, and yeah, I appreciate the
Okay.
efforts that are going on.
Yeah. Thank you. And Carly? Mm.
Hi everyone, I'm Kelly Boga. I'm from London, UK. My symptoms started when I was 15. I was very fortunate. I was diagnosed when I was 18, so my journey was only 3 years. I started with cataplexy, and I used to fall to the floor a lot, so it was very obvious that something was very wrong with me. And I went to see psychiatrists, and they thought I had anemia, and they thought I had panic attacks. The regular thing that you hear. And then when I went to college, it was just so out of control that the teachers were like, something, you must get seen. And a teacher's husband found an article in the newspaper. He gave it to his wife, and he said to her, please give this to your student. If this doesn't help her, I don't know what will. And that's how I got diagnosed. Gave that to the doctors. And within a month from that, I got an appointment at the hospital. It was interesting because it was at Arizona Nostra Hospital, so we were really confused as why we were being sent there. But there was a sleep specialist there, and he diagnosed me within 5 minutes. Because it was textbook, it was unbelievable that he thought it took that long for me to diagnose. I run Naps for Life and Narcolepsy Navigators podcast, and it frustrates me that now in 2025, we're still having this discussion, and I don't know why it's still being allowed to be able to. When I think of things that you do in life, usually there are hoops that you have to jump before something can be published. So it just aggravates me that in 2025, still they're able to put it on television without actually doing research and stuff like that. You could never do that to a heart condition and to other diseases. You would never be able to. They'd have to ask you to take the show down. And so I don't know why they're still allowed to do that, and why there isn't some type of ethical clause that we could like pull them up on. I don't know if there's such a thing in film or whatever, but it's just disappointing that we're still at this when it is so readily available. Like, the organizations are there, they're not hidden. It wouldn't even take 2 seconds on the thing. When I was diagnosed, there was no such thing as Google. Google didn't exist. There's no excuse to why you couldn't contact an organization, why you wouldn't want to go and shadow someone. That's what you do when you do film, and you want to really embody the character that you're doing. You should be going to watch them, to shadow them. I don't think any of us here would have a problem with someone watching us for a month, coming and seeing what our life is really like. I have had that fall. My sister, I was arguing with my sister about this 2 days ago, and she said to me, "Well, Kelly, you've fallen like that." Yes, I have, once, since I was 15 till now, and I'm 42. So you can't use that as a thing in the show. If, what, 5% of people maybe have ever fell backwards. It's not a regular thing. And so there's so many ways that you could be educating and still make it. I wouldn't say it's funny, because I don't want it ever to be portrayed as funny, but it's almost like we can tell a joke between each other here because we all have the illness, but you shouldn't be able to tell a joke about us unless we are writing the script and saying, you can put this in the script because this happened to us, but not in that negative way. And for me, it's because it's something that we kind of control. It's a bit like racism to me. That's how offended I am by it. It's like, I can control that I'm Black. So if you're being horrible to me because I'm Black, or someone's being horrible to someone because they're white, that's unfair. So you shouldn't be able to tell lies about an illness either. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Thank you. And Chloe?
Yes, so I'm Chloe. I am from Houston, Texas, and I have narcolepsy with cataplexy. It took me around a year to get diagnosed, and it was during like the pandemic. And I also faced a lot of like misdiagnosis with like depression, eating disorders, like the whole round. I think I haven't watched the show because I just don't want to give it any viewership. I watched like the trailer and I watched some other clips and I saw like the comments and discourse, but it like other people have said, a majority of the comments are, like, overflowing with, "Oh, it's so funny, it's so good, it's my favorite show," and that's kind of disappointing to hear, especially, Tara mentioning that, like, other shows have brought it in recently and, like, kinda doubled down on it because, in Houston, I go to school in the medical center. We have one of the biggest medical centers, and even here, like, teachers and people I'm around constantly, if I tell them I have narcolepsy, the first thing I think we all know, the first thing that they'll say to you is, "Oh, are you gonna fall asleep right now?" Or, like, "You're gonna fall asleep when you're talking to me." And of course, that's, like, very unlikely to happen, and just, like, the stereotypes, is kind of crazy, like, have they don't know what narcolepsy is, but even, like, health professionals still in that area, a lot of them, even I know neurologists even or, like, nurses, they still don't know, they don't understand what narcolepsy is, and it's really detrimental to, like, the patients or just the people because when you're trying to access, like, if you need accommodations or just in your normal daily life, not understanding leads to direct harm for everyone involved.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've all seen, the project what Julie's doing with Project Sleep and signing the petition and so forth. Has anyone not seen it? Do I need to forward it? It's on Project Sleep's Facebook page and mine, and probably, people with narcolepsy for are probably on your Facebook page as well. So everybody's got that, okay. And then, Todd, love to hear from you after hearing these these comments.
Well, I think that everything that has been said here is not only typical, but is worth repeating to the powers that be. The interesting thing about this is that they've picked one symptom and they've ignored the main symptom, which is excessive daytime sleepiness. And it's hard to make fun of somebody who is sleepy all the time because everybody has it. And the ability to differentiate normal sleepiness from pathologic sleepiness is something that most doctors have difficulty with, as Chloe mentioned, and as many of you also mentioned. So, your stories are very important. Back in 2014, the FDA, before it was decimated, had a 2-day conference on the patient's viewpoints of narcolepsy. And it's available online. And they videotaped it. And I really think if you Google FDA patient forums and put in narcolepsy, you'll find it, and you can watch it. And so many of your comments were echoed in that, and that this goes back 11 years ago. So it's something that has been known but ignored, and that's the problem. So I think that if enough people can sign the petition and get it to NBC, then maybe something can happen. But I would also not only send it to NBC, I would find out who the writers are and send it to the writers because they have no idea what the hell this is. I'm sure there's no medical consultant to this show.
Mm-mm.
Perhaps the other shows that, like Chicago,
Chicago Med, 99.
those all have um, MDs or DOs as consultants. They should know better. But I'm sure that Stumble doesn't have any consultants to it other than comedians. So I would definitely do that. And the other thing that I would do is I would write a letter to the Today Show. And this is something Julie can do because she's got the creds in order to go on the Today Show and talk about narcolepsy and in a nice way call out the show Stumble and say it would be nice to see a real disease that affects thousands of people across the country in a fair way. And considering it would be an NBC news show, perhaps the people at corporate would hear it and perhaps make the change. So I think that there are lots of things we can do here, and I would definitely pursue it and not just let it, go by the wayside. But I thank all of you for your comments, and I think every one of you is a terrific spokesperson for narcolepsy. And the more we get this information out, the better. About 20 years ago, a very great sleep specialist who has since passed away, Roger Rosenberg, has wrote a paper that he surveyed um, doctors who call themselves sleep specialists, and he surveyed general practitioners. And he asked many questions about their background and their comfort in diagnosing narcolepsy. And then he asked specific questions. Can you name the 5, or in those days it was 4, major constituents of narcolepsy. 40% of the people who call themselves sleep doctors could not answer the question. And these are people who call themselves sleep doctors. So the amount of misinformation and lack of education is pervasive. And that's something we have to really try and change. So I thank all of you.
Yeah, and we can just, take yourself off mute and just have a roundtable discussion of what's next. Maybe Todd should write a letter to Chicago Med and NBC.
Well, another thing that Todd brought up that I forgot to say, there is so many symptoms of narcolepsy, not just cataplexy or not just the daytime sleeping. If you talk to anybody who's had it for a long, long time, they would probably tell you that cataplexy, if you had anyone, was the most debilitating. But excessive daytime sleepiness is actually not the worst symptom of narcolepsy. Yet this is the thing that everyone always hones on. I have 5 sleeping disorders. Narcolepsy was the first one, and it's the neurological one, and I have the rest. But it's the nightmares, it's the brain fog, it's the memory loss. These are the things that I'm struggling with, not the sleep. Your body gets used to living on this type of sleep, which is not good, because I can't wait for the day that people understand that sleep is as important as water. That is how it's important. How many days can you do without water before you die? That's how important sleep is. Every part of our bodies are affected because we are not having our restorative sleep. And until everyone recognizes that, I don't I don't know how we make headway until we get the public to understand. And even the doctors, like what he was saying, like, I remember our friend Natalie in Germany. When I met her, I couldn't believe the stuff she was telling me, how many sleep doctors she went to, and they didn't even know, like, general symptom. And this is not even the other symptoms. So I think they need to update that in the books. Even they should update it. There's extra symptoms they need to add.
Yeah, I agree.
Well,
And I think with my business, I am really trying to educate on sleep and how important sleep is and how much it actually affects. Like I try and explain, it affects growth, it affects behavior, it affects mental health, emotional health, relationships, everything. And I think that is just so important. And if I could help with anything, with whether it's the letter, anything, I'm more than happy to, because I really am passionate about it, as a lot of you know. And I just sometimes don't know where to start. And so if I can be part of anything, please let me know.
Well, I think that's the one thing that, really, to piggyback on both of these excellent comments, is that people always make the assumption, and everybody realizes, right? When we tell somebody, especially when we've been diagnosed and they know, and we're like, we are tired. And then somebody's like, I am too. Or I'll remember when I'm really newly diagnosed, like within a few days, and I'm telling somebody close to me, a friend, and I tell them, and they made a joke about it, right? And at that point, I was just like, whoa, I'm like, God, I mean, finally, I figured it out. Like all this stuff that's been happening for 32 years, I now know there is something behind it, right? But the thing is that people don't understand is that, yes, when we are having sleep attacks, that's still not restorative sleep, right? Like people don't understand, somebody like me, yeah, when I have a sleep attack or when I'm micro napping, it's not like I'm in a deep sleep. It literally is like I'm halfway awake and in a dream state. It's the weirdest thing, right? And yeah, did I get used to it? Did I get accustomed to it all those years? Absolutely. But then that's when the mental health issues kicked in, right? Mimicking depression, mimicking anxiety, bipolar. I remember finally, I finally hit the mark where, I was contemplating suicide. And I got myself to the ER, and one, they just kept assuming what drugs I was on. And I'm telling them I want off Adderall and modafinil because it's not working. So these are the drugs I'm on. they were not compassionate, they didn't help at all. They didn't understand the doctor sitting here like this, cross-armed, just assuming I'm on something, not wanting to help, calm me down. I'm like freaked out, I'm belligerent. And it's because I was so sleep deprived. I mean, to the point, again, I was hallucinating, all those classic signs of sleep deprivation that people just don't understand, right? And I would never ask anyone to not sleep, but to experience it because you don't want to. It's not fun, and it just, again, it goes back to it's not funny. It's not something we need to be making fun of, right? But we do need more education on that. People need to realize there is a difference between you are blessed in having great sleep cycles. And then there's individuals that do not get sleep cycles when they're napping, when they're sleeping at night. They are just not sleeping. It looks like it, but they're not. And so, yeah, I'm really a big advocate for the mental health part of this. Right. We need to really hit more on this. And it is sad to know, too, that there are medical professionals out there, a majority of them, even the ones that call themselves sleep doctors, are still clueless, right? They still treat this as a stigma, suck it up, or me being overweight. There was an issue. There was a reason why I was overweight, because of the sleep disorder. When I fall asleep, the minute I'm awake, I am raiding the refrigerator, and it's automatic pilot. It's just, I find myself at the refrigerator, right? So yeah, there's just so much to this, disease that people really need to understand from everything. I'm somebody that suffers from mild cataplexy, right? So I have twitching of the eyes, slurring of the words, my knees buckle, right? I've never really experienced, a full major cataplexy episode like Solomon and Rachel. I mean, for some of them, they could go on for like 30 minutes or so. And it's not funny, right? I mean, what somebody's going through, that is scary to go through something like that. And two, and I'll wrap it up. I'm also somebody that, yes, suffers from a lot of sleep paralysis. But I am lucky enough, though, that I do not have the hallucinations associated with it. But the people that I speak to that are having those nightmares and seeing somebody trying to choke you, that is terrifying, and to live like that on a daily basis, right? It's just not fun. It's all right. Go ahead. Solomon, I think you want to say something, buddy.
Yeah, I'll follow you up. That was good. So cataplexy is a physiologic neurological event. It's not this like natural thing, being in a complete temporary muscle paralysis is not something people are familiar with. They can't comprehend or fathom that. Not to mention it steals the joy and pleasant interactions because it's those, moments of laughter, moments of somebody smiling at you, or even odd stuff, being asked for change on the street, or it can be anything. So it's not just pleasant emotions, it's all sorts of emotions. On top of that, it builds and creates this unique anxiety that's like general, social, all of these different anxieties combined into one unique, heavy, ongoing, burdening ordeal because you have to like learn your limitations and boundaries and remain within them and walk on this very fine tightrope like through life. And I'm speaking towards more moderate, partial, and severe complete extents of the symptoms, which is a minority, but still, like the stuff in Stumble is like portraying severe, yet it's like the punchline, as it's always been. I want to follow up in saying that, like, the disease is so fascinating. It goes so far beyond sleep. Sleep is just like one of these the main thing that's noted, but it's like your entire central nervous system, your physical and psychological, like Alejandro hinted at, your second nature, natural mechanisms to restore, rebalance, refresh, resync your well being. When you don't have restorative sleep, even if you sleep 8 hours, you're missing the stages that
Matter.
restore your your mental well-being and your physical, well-being. It makes you wanna eat. There's so much more to it. It's fascinating, and Hollywood c could change that all if they were able to portray it right, but it's very difficult because it's so abstract, and like I was saying, you can't fathom that as a normal person to be in a muscle paralysis when you laugh. You can kinda assume you get it, but, like, it goes so deep into a person's character, mannerisms, traits, persona, behaviors, mindset, beyond, like, there's so much for cataplexy alone to be written about that's not in medical literature, that's not understood, that's barely touched on because it's the minority that has lived with such a extent of it. But I try to write about that. I try to articulate it. I try to document it in the advocacy that I do and, the art that I do. I think, like, one day it's gonna be something going viral, some politician, athlete, celebrity, something's gonna happen, and there's gonna be, like, a big mind shift that happens because of that. But until that day, we're burdened dramatically. I'm on a little rant there, but I think that was
No, that's why we're here.
yeah,
That's why we're here.
for sure.
Yeah, to me, the quality of the show could be a lot better instead of just relying on a lot of slapstick comedy. If they could, to me, the show kind of reminded me of a show I loved called Glee, and that was and to me, it seems like they could do a lot better on character development because it's just is a very like a very slapstick type comedy, and they could develop the characters better. They don't. I watched the whole 2 episodes because I wanted to give it a fair shot, and I there are a lot of things that are funny, but they really shouldn't be laughed about, and it wasn't just the narcolepsy, yeah, but it was the husband's head injury seemed to be insensitively joked about. There are a couple problems with the show where they're just, like, making big deals into punchlines.
I just think that wouldn't it be so wonderful if these writers understood the positive impact they could have on getting those that are undiagnosed if they wrote this differently? I mean, yes, granted, there's gotta be a middle ground. I mean, I'm one of those people, I do love humor, right? I think of, like, how there's certain episodes, like, when they have a certain topic about something, like, I'll use, like, suicide, for example, right? At the end of the episode, they have some type of disclaimer, like a
Mhm.
sentence or 2, right, that explains something. I was really hoping, I myself, I too don't wanna give them the ratings to watch this, but yes, I did look at that clip, and my deep concern is that I was hoping, like, well, maybe it's just this clip. They're just using that to get viewership because that's what they watch the actual, show itself, maybe throughout the episodes, there'll be some great education. But from finding out from the community, that's just not happening. It is really a punchline. And I want them to know you can change this and get those people that are undiagnosed because there are. Think about it, 1 in 2,000 right now are diagnosed in the United States. That's not the right number. There's more out there. People, especially with children, I was one of them, right? And everybody that was like a childhood, narcolepsy, I too, right? It was the same thing. You're getting tested for ADHD, depression, anxiety, and they're just like, "We don't know what's going on." But yeah, so Hollywood, please, just shift your attitude. Reach out to us. We'd love to educate you, and you can help people get diagnosed. That might be like, "Oh my god, that's me. I'm living this." Because
Right.
right now you're making fun of somebody falling, and those individuals that are experiencing that and seeing those other individuals laughing at them are like, "Yeah, I don't wanna get diagnosed. I don't wanna have to go through this, being made fun of, this stigma. No, no, not at all. Don't want that to happen." So you're not doing us a justice.
Yeah.
I had a recent conversation, just last week, Narcolep Narcolepsy Academy, Paul, I'm in his life coaching thing. One of the ladies there, she's from Finland, and she was diagnosed because of the vaccine. She's one of the people that was affected with the vaccine. And I said to her, I'd love to have her on the podcast. And she said to me, "Oh, Kelly, no, my story is so boring. There's no way." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she goes, my symptoms of narcolepsy is not strong enough to warrant to tell my story." And that made me really sad. And she goes, "I have a neighbor who was diagnosed the same time as us. There's three of them. They were in the same school." And she goes, she's so bad. You should interview her." And I said to her, "The very reason you don't want to be interviewed by me is the very reason you should. Because there are people out there that are having your type of narcolepsy symptom, and they don't know because what they're seeing on television doesn't show that. So they don't think they have it, and they need to hear your story."
Yeah, I had a similar thing. I wrote some notes before, I came on my phone, and I said the same thing, like, the show's it the re like, people finding it humorous isn't bad, humor is great, but the reason why it's bad is because it directly gives that false interpretation of people with narcolepsy, so people with narcolepsy watching or, like, family members and friends of people with narcolepsy watching, that's gonna hurt them, and also for the people that haven't been diagnosed, they're gonna be like, "Oh, well, I definitely don't have narcolepsy then," and I know I've been seeing also when I was scrolling through comments, I see, I think it was the writer, typing some comments on how they were working on the show for 4 years, and I know obviously there was, like, lots of effort goes into putting a show, but if you spent 4 years putting on the show and you still got to this as the end result, there needs to be some change here. Like, we can still have a good show and you can make a mistake and come back from the mistake. So I think it's like a super important opportunity, not just to directly like shame them, but they can come back from it and make it an even better show that's still funny and people still love. And like because it's like popular or it seems to be popular and well liked, that's even better. So then we can spread about narcolepsy education to the masses. So advocacy is so important because people keep re-spreading all these harmful stereotypes that are just completely inaccurate. So, yeah.
Definitely.
Anybody else? Rachel?
Mhm.
Todd?
I've been waiting for years. I think that they could, why hasn't anybody done some reality TV? Because I think, like, it would be cool to have a show about us, the real people with narcolepsy, and just to show, if people are comfortable sharing their own clips of their own narcolepsy symptoms, what it really looks like. And what I see is a lot of strength in our community. Everyone that has narcolepsy, and you see how passionate we are, and we're not a joke, but there are elements that are funny. Like I think like the pomegranate story that is was funny,
Mm.
and especially how it happened. And it is true because of the media. That is why people think, even in the show, she falls like she's having cataplexy, but they're making it where she's actually literally falling down asleep. And that very, very rarely happens. And it's infuriating, and it's like you could do better, and you could even make it more interesting. I mean, there's no excuse for a medical show for doctors to have so little empathy that they're like, "I'm jealous of my patient having narcolepsy." Well, that's a doctor that I would probably would never go back to because they're dismissing my symptoms and trivializing them. So I think they could definitely write a really cool story that is intriguing. And I've had like they're they've sometimes put it's just like always, it's a bad, example of someone just being a slapstick comedy, and every single time on Stumble that I saw, Either she literally does that every time. It's not they could be a variety of symptoms. No, she, like, literally is in the middle of something and falls down every time. She does it about 2 to 3 times per episode, and, you know, she'll get called names like one of them called her Sleeping Beauty and laughed about it. And so it's, like, really, really, like trivializing medical conditions, and it can be very dangerous. If someone has cataplexy problems, they just say, "Oh, well, she's sleeping, let her sleep and lay there." And meanwhile, you look at her position on the floor, I don't even know if she can breathe. Nobody checks on her to make sure she can breathe. They just let her lay on the floor while everybody else continues. And that to me, that's like nobody's trying to check on her or her medications, what's going on. But it's disappointing.
Yeah.
Sure. I have some clips here
Yeah,
from my 20s. I mean,
yes, you
I'll
should
share
show
it.
'em. That's real.
Oh, I mean, I can share here. I've got them. They're on my YouTube, but here, one sec. Uh,
Yeah, and put your YouTube channel in the chat as well when you're done sharing.
here's a couple. Severe complete. Handing my mom the camera because I knew it was gonna make her react, and boom. They're pretty brief for me, but, like, and then the next minute later, she rolls her eyes, hand her the camera again, boom, and then I try to kind of get up, and it causes me to, like, start to sort of twitch and almost, like, convulse, like. So early on, I learned you gotta relax, you gotta just, like, wait it out, and then you can come out of it. But there's so much. Those are just a couple examples. I'll put my YouTube here in the chat.
In the chat,
Yeah, because
yeah.
the more you fight it, the more it happens. I remember when they used to say at the beginning, "Oh, it only lasts for a couple of minutes," and, until I had one that was 40 minutes long. I was like, "Hmm." I had to tell my neurologist about this. I said, "Thought you said it only happens like, 10, 15 minutes." I was like, "No, there are some longer ones, and you learn pretty quickly that please everyone be calm." I remember being a counselor at a camp with the kids, and I sat with them and I told them in the 6 kids in the camp what could possibly happen, because mine is triggered by laughter. People get other ones by anger, surprise, and stuff like that, but mine is laughter. And we were finished the day, we're eating, and one of the kids said a joke. I started having cataplexy, and then the teenagers that were in my caravan were saying to the rest of them, "Okay, let's go out the caravan." She said that we should keep quiet. If we're quiet, she comes out of it quicker. And then the other ones were like, "No, help her. Don't do that. That's not, you must help her." And I could hear them and I couldn't get out because I was hearing them arguing with each other about who was right and what should they do. Should they take the bowl? Should they not take the bowl? And I just going in and out, in and out, in and out. And then when I finally came out, I said, "You didn't listen. What did I tell you? Just stay quiet," and I would have come out quicker, but no.
Yeah, stress will definitely exacerbate it. And also, like, narcolepsy is also confused with, like, epilepsy a lot. Like, I've had, like, PE teachers be like, "Oh, are you gonna have seizures when you're playing basketball right now?" And I'm like, That's not what narcolepsy is."
And just other
So
things
true.
like the regulation, and when we talked about regulating body temperature, I've never seen anything talks about that. I think that's a good thing that you could add to the show about how it affects people's body temperature. Some people run very hot, some people run cold, some people run hot and cold. You're hotter and colder than the average person. Also, the appetite. Your appetite's also been regulated, so it's not just sleep. That part of the brain we know affects appetite, it affects body temperature and sleep. And so,
Muscles
muscle, yes,
muscles, cardio,
yeah.
respiratory, it's across the
Yeah,
board.
you hit that too, Curly, because I remember I was just telling my wife that last night. I'm like, I remember when I was having that severe sleep deprivation, I was always shivering, like painful. I've never experienced that. There was times where I'd have to come into the bed and just try to get warm with the dogs and my wife, but it was like painful shivering. That's how cold, like my body temperature would drop. Yeah, it was bad.
Well, there's a reason for that because
Mm.
during REM sleep, we become reptilian. We lose central control of body temperature. There's a very fancy medical term for it called poikilothermia. And it's well known that during REM sleep, your body temperature drops. And that's why in the morning when you wake up, particularly after a dream, you're shivering and you're cold. And that's because during REM sleep, your body temperature drops to the ambient temperature of the room.
Wow.
So
Wow.
Um,
that, that's the reason why.
Thank you.
But
Wow.
but the thing here is that for this show in particular, we're not going to rewrite and make it a medical show. What we have to do is, though, get to the writers and tell them to just do a better portrayal of what narcolepsy is, the fact that it's not a joke, the fact that the main symptom is excessive sleepiness and not just fatigue, and that sleepiness can cause auto accidents and it can be deadly. So, there are things that we can point out that they can incorporate into their scripts that don't turn it into a medical show for narcolepsy, but yet let them still have their comedy for, whatever they want to do, stumble or whatever they're calling it. So I think that this is something that Julie can do. And as I said, Julie has the creds in order to do that. She's already appeared on many nationwide news shows, and I think that the people who schedule guests on these morning news programs know her, and she's on the list of accepted speakers. So I think if we can convince her to do that, and I think if enough people sign the petition, she might be encouraged to do that. And at least we can start something that will be helpful uh, to get this ridiculous portrayal off of this show. Um, I I've watched it. I'm not sure that this is ever going to make it to season 2, but we can try.
Yeah. And
All right.
I will
Well,
share this video recording with Julie as well, just so that she has it in her toolbox, so to speak.
yeah. Well, we're coming up to an hour or so. Marilyn, do you have any
Well,
final?
I thank everyone for coming, such short notice, and, I'm happy to do it again on Monday as people still start sharing this,